Most people think peace comes when life finally becomes stable. When the bills are paid, when the uncertainty disappears, when the diagnosis comes back clean, when the relationship heals, when the future finally feels secure. Then they think, I'll stop worrying. But Jesus taught something radically different. He taught that peace does not come from controlling life. It comes from trusting God in the middle of a life you cannot control. And that's difficult for most people to accept, because human beings crave certainty. We want guarantees. We want explanations. We want to know exactly how things will turn out before we feel safe. But faith has never worked that way. In fact, many of the things Jesus said about fear, anxiety, and trust directly challenge the way most people naturally think. And today, we're going to explore 5 powerful truths Jesus taught that can completely change the way you carry your burdens. Because the truth is, many people are physically alive, but emotionally crushed by fear. And Jesus came not only to save souls, but to free hearts trapped by anxiety, control, and exhaustion. Let's begin. 1. Peace is not the absence of storms. One of the biggest misunderstandings about faith is the idea that following God removes difficulty from your life. But Jesus never promised a storm-free life. In fact, some of his followers went through incredible suffering, hardship, and uncertainty. What he promised was something deeper: his presence in the middle of the storm. One night, Jesus and his disciples were crossing the Sea of Galilee when a violent storm erupted. The waves crashed into the boat, the wind roared, the disciples panicked, and where was Jesus? Sleeping. Think about that. The disciples were terrified, while Jesus rested peacefully in the middle of chaos. Not because the storm wasn't real, but because fear did not control him. Eventually, they woke him and cried, "Lord, save us, we're going to die." And Jesus responded with a question that still challenges believers today. Why are you so afraid? Not because storms aren't frightening, but because fear grows when trust shrinks. Many people think peace comes after the storm ends. Jesus demonstrated that real peace can exist even while the storm is still raging around you. 2. Fear grows wherever trust disappears. Jesus constantly addressed fear because he understood something about the human heart. Whatever you trust most will shape your emotional life. If you trust money most, financial loss will control you. If you trust approval most, rejection will destroy you. If you trust your own control most, uncertainty will terrify you. Fear often reveals where trust has been misplaced. This is why Jesus repeatedly told people not to be afraid, not because danger wasn't real, but because God was greater than the thing they feared. When Peter walked on water toward Jesus, he was doing the impossible for a few moments. But the second he shifted his focus from Jesus to the wind and waves around him, he began sinking. That's how fear works psychologically and spiritually. Whatever dominates your attention eventually begins dominating your mind. And that's why anxiety often becomes so overwhelming. People spend hours staring at the storm and only seconds focusing on God. Jesus calls us to reverse that. 3. You were never meant to carry everything yourself. One of the most comforting invitations Jesus ever gave is found in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Notice who Jesus speaks to: the weary, the burdened, the exhausted. People carrying more emotionally than they were designed to carry alone. Modern life trains people to hide their weakness. Handle it yourself, stay productive, keep functioning, pretend you're okay. But Jesus invited people to do the exact opposite. Come honestly, come tired, come overwhelmed. Many people want peace without surrender, but peace often begins the moment we finally admit, I cannot carry this by myself anymore. And strangely, that kind of surrender is not weakness, it's freedom. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you finally leave room for God to carry what you cannot. 4. The mind becomes what it feeds on. Jesus understood the power of attention long before modern psychology studied it. What you repeatedly focus on eventually shapes your inner world. This is why Jesus constantly redirected people's attention away from fear, away from obsession, away from worldly anxiety, and toward God. Many people today spend hours consuming fear every single day. Bad news, conflict, comparison, outrage, social media, worst-case scenarios. Then they wonder why peace feels so far away. The human mind was not designed to live under constant psychological alarm. Jesus said, The eye is the lamp of the body. In other words, what enters your mind matters. What you dwell on matters. And many people are unknowingly feeding their anxiety every day while starving their faith. Peace is not only spiritual, it is deeply connected to what you allow to repeatedly occupy your mind. 5. God's presence is greater than your uncertainty. At the core of most anxiety is one painful reality. Human beings do not know the future. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know how situations will end. We don't know how life will unfold. And uncertainty makes people feel powerless. But Christianity has never been about having certainty in circumstances. It is about having confidence in God despite uncertain circumstances. Again and again, Jesus reminded people of one simple truth. God is with you, not only in success, not only in clarity, not only when life feels easy, with you in fear, with you in suffering, with you in confusion, with you in waiting. And that changes everything. Because the opposite of fear is not control. The opposite of fear is trust. The disciples feared storms. Jesus trusted the Father. People feared lack. Jesus trusted provision. People feared death itself. Jesus overcame it. And through every teaching, every miracle, every conversation, Jesus kept inviting people into the same life, a life not ruled by fear, but ruled by faith. Conclusion: if there's one thing Jesus consistently showed people, it's that anxiety does not have to become your master. Fear may visit you, but it does not have to control you. Remember the truths he taught. Peace can exist in the middle of storms. Fear grows where trust disappears. You are never meant to carry life alone. Your mind becomes what it feeds on, and God's presence is greater than your uncertainty. None of this means life suddenly becomes easy. It means you no longer face life by yourself. And maybe that's what makes the message of Jesus so powerful, even thousands of years later. He did not promise people a painless life. He offered something deeper, a steady heart in the middle of an unsteady world. So if you've been carrying anxiety, fear, or exhaustion lately, pause for a moment. Breathe. Pray. Surrender what you cannot control. And remember this: the same God who carried you through every difficult moment before is still with you now, even here, even in this season, even in the uncertainty. And sometimes faith begins with nothing more than choosing to trust God one more day.